A billionaire suspects his new wife is secretly abusing his children. Desperate for the truth, he disguises himself as a humble gardener to investigate what happens behind closed doors. But what he discovers changes everything. A brave housemaid risking her own job to protect the children. And when the billionaire finally removes his disguise in front of everyone, the truth explodes like a storm. You won't believe how this story of revenge, love, and justice comes to an unforgettable end. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The garden shears trembled in Richard Whitmore's hands as he watched through the kitchen window. His new wife, Vanessa, stood in the middle of the bright marble kitchen, her face twisted with anger. "Stupid girl!" she hissed, shoving 6-year-old Lily against the counter hard enough to make her whimper. "How many times do I have to tell you? The table is set before breakfast, not after." Lily's small hands clutched her arm where she'd hit the edge. Her big blue eyes shimmered with tears she tried to hold back. Behind her, 2-year-old Ethan sat on the floor beside his toy blocks, watching in silent confusion. "Don't just stand there," Vanessa snapped at him. "Pick that up. Both of you are the same, lazy and spoiled. Your father works like a dog to keep this house, and you can't even do one simple thing right." Outside, crouched behind the flower beds, Richard forced himself to breathe. For 2 weeks, he had been living in his own mansion disguised as the gardener. 2 long weeks pretending to be a stranger in the house he'd built for his children. 2 weeks since he'd told Vanessa he was leaving town for a month-long business trip. A story supported by an actor he'd hired to take his phone calls and pretend to be him. "If you disobey me again, you'll go to bed without dinner," Vanessa said sharply. "Do you understand me?" Lily nodded, eyes down. "Good. Maybe hunger will teach you manners." Vanessa stormed out of the kitchen, heels clicking against the tile. She nearly collided with Richard, who was trimming hedges just outside the glass door. "Watch where you're going," she snapped. "Can't you see I'm walking here?" "I'm sorry, ma'am," Richard said quietly, lowering his head. She eyed him from his worn boots to his faded denim shirt. "People like you always think you can do whatever you want. I hope Sophia isn't paying you much for this pathetic job. Look at these hedges, crooked. I'll fix them right away." "Ma'am." "You'd better," she muttered, striding off. 2 weeks earlier, in a sleek downtown Los Angeles office scented faintly of coffee and leather, Richard had sat across from his friend and lawyer. "Daniel Hayes, you're insane," Daniel said flatly, setting down his mug. "You want to disguise yourself as a gardener in your own house? This isn't a movie, Rich." "It's the only way I'll know the truth." "It's illegal," Daniel warned. "You could get into serious trouble. Privacy invasion, deception. In my own home, it's not invasion," Richard cut in. Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. "Talk to me. What's going on?" Richard looked out the window at the LA skyline glowing in the March sunlight. "It's the kids," he said softly. "Something's off. Lily used to run to me every evening. Now she hides behind the couch when I walk in. Ethan barely speaks when she's around. And Vanessa, she's changed, colder, controlling." Daniel leaned forward. "You think she's hurting them?" Richard hesitated. "Last week Lily said something strange. She told me, when Daddy's gone, the rules are different." When I asked what she meant, she froze. Said she was confused. "But I saw it, Dan, fear. Real fear," Daniel frowned. "You could confront her." "About what? A gut feeling?" "She'd just laugh it off." "So what's your plan?" "To find out the truth," Richard said. "If I'm wrong, fine. But if I'm right." His voice hardened. "Then I'll do what I should have done long ago. Protect my kids." It took him 3 days to prepare. He hired a struggling local actor, Javier Ruiz, to make brief phone calls to Vanessa, pretending to be him. Then he bought a fake beard, a cap, worn jeans and scuffed work boots from a thrift shop. When he looked in the mirror afterward, he barely recognized the man staring back. The conversation with Vanessa about his business trip had been tense. "A whole month?" she asked, her tone more curious than sad. "Is that really necessary?" "The investors in New York want to review everything personally," he said. "And you can't just fly back and forth. It'd be too expensive." She nodded slowly, and Richard swore he saw something flicker in her eyes, relief. "The kids will miss you," she said flatly. "Take good care of them." "Of course," she smiled thinly. "You can count on me." That night, as he pretended to pack for a trip he wouldn't take, he overheard her on the phone. "Yes, he'll be gone for a whole month," she whispered. "Finally I can get this house under control." The next morning the gardener arrived. Sophia, the maid they'd hired 3 weeks earlier, opened the back door. She looked about 28, her brown hair tied neatly in a ponytail, her eyes warm but cautious. "You must be the new gardener," she said kindly. "Yes, ma'am." "Name's Robert," Richard replied, lowering his voice. "I'm Sophia. Mrs. Whitmore told me you'd start today." She walked him through the tasks, trimming the roses, cleaning the fountain, and he studied her manner carefully. She was respectful but firm, never servile. Something about her kindness felt genuine, rare in that house. Vanessa entered the kitchen just as he stepped outside. "This is the gardener," Sophia said. Vanessa gave him a quick glance of disdain. "I hope he's better than the last one. That man was hopeless." "I'll do my best, ma'am," Richard said quietly. "You'd better." "I don't tolerate incompetence." For hours, Richard worked in silence, his soft hands blistering from the tools. Yet the physical pain was nothing compared to the ache of watching his home from the outside, pretending to be a stranger in his children's world. Around mid-morning, the glass door opened. 6-year-old Lily stepped out, holding her little brother's hand. Ethan toddled beside her, clumsy but determined. "Who's that?" Lily whispered. "The new gardener," Sophia answered gently. "His name's Robert." Lily tilted her head, studying him with innocent curiosity. "Where's Mr. Miguel?" "He found another job," Sophia replied. Richard kept his eyes down, pruning a rosebush. Hearing his daughter's soft voice calling him sir instead of daddy cut deeper than he'd expected. "Good morning," he murmured. "Good morning," Lily said shyly. Ethan waved, his tiny fingers curling into a fist. When they went back inside, Richard noticed the girl's shoulders droop. The laughter that used to fill this yard was gone, replaced by silence. By noon, Sophia brought him a glass of water and a sandwich. "Thought you might be hungry." "Thank you," he said, surprised. They sat together under the oak tree, the same one he'd planted when Lily was born. "Been doing this long?" she asked. Honest work," he replied. "Family?" He paused. "Divorced." "No kids?" "I'm sorry," he shrugged. "Life doesn't always go as planned." Sophia smiled faintly. "The kids are good, sweet, just quiet." "Quiet?" he asked carefully. She hesitated. "Maybe I'm imagining things." Forget I said anything, but Richard saw it in her eyes. Concern. And that was the moment he knew. His instincts were right. Something dark was happening in that house. By the third day, Richard's disguise no longer felt strange. The smell of wet soil and fertilizer clung to his hands. His back ached from bending over flower beds. But the ache in his chest was worse. The helplessness of watching his children live in quiet fear. Late that afternoon, Lily and Ethan came home from preschool and daycare. Vanessa met them in the kitchen. Richard, pruning the hedges just beyond the window, could hear every word. "How was your day?" Vanessa asked, her voice deceptively sweet. "Good," Lily answered softly. "Good what?" Lily blinked. "Good, ma'am." "Try again." Lily's lips trembled. "Good, Mrs. Whitmore. That's better. Now take your brother upstairs and make sure he doesn't touch anything." "Yes, Mrs. Whitmore." Richard froze. His children had never spoken like that. They used to call everyone by name, even the staff. Vanessa had turned them into strangers. An hour later, Ethan's faint cries echoed through the hall. Richard looked up from the bushes just in time to see the boy toddle out of the kitchen, holding his little stuffed elephant. Vanessa appeared seconds later, her tone sharp and cold. "What did I tell you about dragging that filthy toy around the house?" she snapped, snatching it from his hands. Ethan whimpered, reaching for it. "It's dirty. You're not a baby anymore." She tossed it into the trash can. Ethan began to sob uncontrollably. Richard's knuckles whitened around the pruning shears. His son was barely 2 years old. He still slept hugging that elephant every night since his mother's death. Vanessa knew that, but she didn't care. Sophia entered quietly, holding a dish towel. "Mrs. Whitmore," she said softly, "I can wash the toy if you'd like. It's easy to clean." Vanessa turned, eyes narrowing. "Did I ask for your opinion?" "No, ma'am," Sophia said carefully, "but then stay out of it. You're the help, not the mother." Sophia lowered her gaze. "Yes, ma'am." When Vanessa turned away, Sophia crouched beside Ethan, whispering something Richard couldn't hear. The boy's crying slowed as she gently wiped his face. Richard felt a mix of anger and gratitude. Someone was trying to protect his children, quietly, bravely, under that roof. That night, in the small motel room where he was staying under his false name, Richard peeled off the fake beard and stared at his reflection. The adhesive left red marks on his skin, but what truly burned was what he'd seen. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through old photos. Lily's first dance recital, Ethan's second birthday. Both kids smiling wide, cheeks sticky with frosting. Now their smiles were gone. His phone buzzed. Vanessa calling. He let it ring twice before answering. "Hi, sweetheart," she purred. "How are those meetings going?" "Long days," he said. "We're making progress." "Good. Everything's perfect here. The kids are finally learning discipline." "Discipline?" "They're quiet, respectful. You'd be proud." He could hear the satisfaction in her voice, the sound of control disguised as order. "Glad to hear it," he said evenly. "When you get back, you'll see. They're changing for the better." "Better," he repeated softly. "Right." After she hung up, Richard sat on the edge of the bed in silence. "Changing," she'd said. "For the better." No, he thought. They're breaking. The next morning, before dawn, he returned to the mansion. As he crossed the back lawn, he heard raised voices upstairs. Vanessa's, sharp and angry, and Lily's, trembling. He crept beneath the window of Lily's room. The curtains were open just enough to see inside. Vanessa stood over the child's bed, the comforter yanked halfway off. "This bed looks like a mess. You think this is how a young lady keeps her room?" I tried," Lily whispered. "Try again." Lily struggled to pull the heavy blanket tight across the mattress, her little hands fumbling with the corners. "Not like that," Vanessa barked. "You're useless if you can't even make a bed." Tears spilled silently down Lily's cheeks, but she didn't stop until it was perfect. "That's better. Next time, do it right the first time." As Vanessa left, Richard saw Ethan toddle in, clutching his blanket. Lily knelt, hugging her brother tightly. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's okay." Richard pressed his forehead against the wall, shaking. Every instinct screamed to burst in and stop it. But he couldn't, not yet. Not until he had proof. At breakfast, he pretended to trim the hedges near the dining room window. Vanessa served herself a large plate of scrambled eggs, bacon and toast. She gave Lily half that, and Ethan just a small cup of milk and a single slice of bread. "That's enough," she said curtly. "Can I have a little more?" Lily asked timidly. "I'm still hungry." Vanessa slammed her fork down. "Do you want to get fat? Is that what you want?" "Children who overeat embarrass their parents." Lily shrank back in her chair. "No, Mom." "Then eat what I gave you." Sophia appeared quietly at the door. "Mrs. Whitmore, I can prepare something extra for the little one." "He's only 2. Vanessa turned sharply. "Are you questioning how I feed my children?" "No, of course not," Sophia said quickly. "Good, because if you want to keep this job, you'll remember your place." Richard gripped the hedge trimmer so hard his fingers ached. The sound of his son's small whimpers as he reached for more food burned into his mind. When Vanessa left the room, Sophia immediately returned with a small plate of fruit and set it beside the children. "Eat this quickly," she whispered. "Don't let her see," Richard watched through the glass, his throat tightening. This woman, this stranger he'd hired as a maid, was risking her job to keep his children fed. And he realized something. Sophia wasn't just kind. She was brave. Later that afternoon, while Richard raked the path behind the house, Sophia came out carrying a watering can. "The roses are beautiful," she said softly, glancing toward the windows. "They used to be Lily's favorite," he replied, keeping his voice low. "She's a sweet child," Sophia murmured. "But she looks scared." Richard turned to her slowly. "Have you noticed anything unusual?" Sophia hesitated, eyes flicking toward the house. "Sometimes people change when the husband isn't home." "What do you mean?" "Some people like to appear perfect," she said carefully, "but behind closed doors they take it out on those smaller than them." Their eyes met for a long moment. She didn't say Vanessa's name. She didn't need to. Richard nodded slightly. "You're right. Children should never be afraid in their own home." Sophia exhaled shakily. "No, they shouldn't." That night, as he lay awake staring at the motel ceiling, Richard whispered to himself, "I'm coming for you, my babies. Just a little longer." By the end of the second week, Richard could no longer tell what hurt more, his hands, raw from the tools, or his heart, breaking a little each day. Vanessa's cruelty had become routine, precise, almost rehearsed. Each morning she found something new to criticize: a misplaced toy, a wrinkled sheet, a crumb on the floor. Every small mistake became a reason to punish. Sophia tried to protect the children quietly. She never confronted Vanessa directly anymore. She had learned that doing so only made things worse. Instead, she created small moments of mercy, hiding extra snacks for Ethan behind the pantry door, slipping a soft blanket onto Lily's bed after Vanessa ordered her to sleep, without one as punishment. Richard saw it all from his corner of the garden. One afternoon, Vanessa hosted her weekly ladies' brunch. 3 women from the neighborhood arrived, wearing designer sunglasses and artificial smiles, the kind who turned gossip into sport. "Children, come say hello to my friends," Vanessa called from the terrace. Lily appeared at the top of the stairs, holding Ethan's tiny hand. She wore a pale dress with a ribbon tied too tight around her waist. Ethan stumbled, still learning to balance. "Aren't they adorable?" one woman gushed. "They look like little angels," said another. "Yes," Vanessa said proudly. "They're finally behaving. A bit of discipline works wonders." She guided the children closer, like trophies on display. "Show the ladies how well you can behave." Lily looked at the women and whispered, "Good afternoon." "Louder," Vanessa demanded. "Good afternoon." "Better." Richard's jaw clenched as he trimmed the hedges nearby. He'd designed this terrace years ago, the white marble, the manicured plants, the peaceful fountain. Now it was a stage for humiliation. After 10 minutes of shallow conversation, Vanessa dismissed the children. "Go upstairs and be silent. Adults are talking." "Yes, Mrs. Whitmore," Lily said softly, guiding Ethan away. As soon as they disappeared, one woman chuckled. "You're strict, Vanessa. My daughter would never stand still that long." "Because you let her run wild," Vanessa replied with pride. "Children need structure, firm hands, clear rules. Otherwise they grow up weak." Richard's grip on the pruning shears tightened. He could feel every word like a slap. Later that day, he saw Vanessa in Lily's room. She was tearing through the child's drawers, muttering, "Messy, always messy." When she found a small stuffed bunny under the bed, she held it up like evidence of a crime. "You're too old for this." Lily, standing in the doorway, froze. "It's mine," she whispered. "Not anymore." Vanessa threw it into the trash can. "You want to cry? Go ahead." "Tears don't work on me." Lily didn't move. She just stood there, trembling. Sophia appeared moments later, her hands clenched. "Mrs. Whitmore, please. She's only 6. Vanessa turned slowly. "Do you enjoy your job, Sophia?" "Yes, ma'am." Then remember, it's not your place to question me. I wasn't enough, Vanessa snapped. Next time you overstep, you're gone. Sophia's eyes met Lily's for a brief second, silent comfort. Then she turned and walked away. That night, in his motel room, Richard recorded everything he'd witnessed in a small notebook. Day 14, she threw away Lily's toy. Threatened Sophia. Children eating less. Lily's eyes, hollow. He knew it was time to start collecting proof. He bought a small digital recorder and hid it in his pocket beneath his gardener's shirt. The following morning, as Richard raked leaves by the kitchen window, he heard Vanessa's voice, low, cold, poisonous. "What is this, Lily?" The girl's voice trembled. "It's my drawing." "Of what?" Lily hesitated. "Of Mommy." "Mommy?" Vanessa laughed, sharp and cruel. "That's not me." "No, my real Mommy." There was a loud slap, not against skin, but the sound of paper being ripped apart. "Your real mother is gone," Vanessa said. "You will respect me now." Richard felt his stomach twist. He could almost see his late wife's smile in Lily's face, gentle, patient, full of love. And now Vanessa was erasing even her memory. He forced himself to keep working, even as tears stung his eyes. He needed her to keep talking. That night, the recorder captured Vanessa's voice clearly through the open kitchen window. "They're finally behaving," she said on the phone. "Fear works better than love. Love makes children spoiled." Richard listened to the playback in his car until his knuckles turned white. Each word was another nail in her coffin. 2 days later, Vanessa cornered Sophia in the kitchen. "I've noticed something strange," Vanessa began, her tone deceptively calm. "You always seem to appear when I'm disciplining the children." Sophia froze mid-motion, holding a dish towel. "I'm just trying to keep the house running smoothly, Mum." "Are you?" Vanessa stepped closer. "Or are you trying to interfere with my parenting?" "Never," Sophia said quietly. "I only want what's best for the kids." "What's best," Vanessa said, leaning close, "is for you to remember who pays your salary." Sophia swallowed. "Yes, ma'am. Good. Because if I even suspect you're turning my stepchildren against me, I'll make sure you never work in this city again." She walked away, heels echoing against the tile. Richard had heard everything from the garden. His pulse pounded in his ears. The way Sophia held her tears back, standing her ground even under threat, filled him with both rage and admiration. At lunch, she brought him his usual sandwich and water, but her smile was gone. They sat under the oak tree in silence for a while before she spoke. "Can I tell you something personal?" she asked. "Of course," he said. "I once worked in a house where the father was cruel," she whispered. "He yelled at his son for every little thing. I kept quiet because I needed the job. Later, I heard the boy went to live with his grandmother after things got worse. I swore I'd never stay silent again." Richard looked at her, his throat tight. "You shouldn't have to choose between doing what's right and keeping your job." "I don't care anymore," she said softly. "No child deserves to be afraid in their own home." Richard wanted to tell her everything, who he really was, why he was there, but he couldn't. Not yet. When Sophia looked up, she smiled faintly. "You remind me of someone," she said. "Oh, my father. He was quiet, but when he spoke, you listened." For the first time in weeks, Richard smiled back. "He sounds like a good man." "He was?" she said. "He believed kindness was a kind of strength." That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He replayed every moment. Sophia's courage, Vanessa's cruelty, his children's silent endurance. He knew the time for watching was ending. Soon he would act, but first he needed undeniable evidence and the right moment to reveal who he really was. He whispered into the dark, "Just hold on, Lily. Hold on, Ethan. Daddy's almost there." The next few days felt like a countdown, every sunrise heavier than the last. Richard woke before dawn, already dressed as the gardener, waiting for the moment when he could finally drop the act. He didn't have to wait long. That Friday morning the house was unnaturally quiet. No cartoons from the living room, no laughter, no sounds of breakfast. Just Vanessa's sharp voice echoing down the hallway. "You call this clean?" she yelled. "This bed looks like a pigsty." Richard froze outside Lily's window. Through the glass, he saw his 6-year-old daughter standing by her bed. Sheets pulled tight, but not perfect. I tried, Mrs. Whitmore," Lily said, voice trembling. "Try harder. You're 6, not stupid." Vanessa yanked the blanket off and threw it to the floor. "Do it again." Lily's small hands shook as she tucked each corner. Ethan watched from the doorway, clutching his blanket. When Vanessa turned on him, he whimpered. "What are you staring at? Go downstairs before you end up next." Richard gripped the window frame until his knuckles went white. Every fibre of him screamed to rush in, but he forced himself to stay still. He needed her to show her true face in front of someone else. At breakfast, Vanessa sat with her perfect posture, a cup of coffee in hand. She'd served herself pancakes stacked high, syrup glistening under the light. Lily's plate had 1 small pancake. Ethan's, just a half. "That's enough," she said coldly. "You don't need more." Ethan tried to reach for the syrup and she slapped his hand. The sound was soft but devastating. "Don't be greedy," she snapped. Sophia appeared, holding a tray of juice. Her eyes darted to the children's plates. "Mrs. Whitmore, perhaps the little one." "Enough," Vanessa said, cutting her off. "I'm tired of your opinions." Sophia's voice was calm but firm. "They're children, ma'am. They need to eat." Vanessa slammed her cup down. "Are you telling me how to run my home?" "No, but get out." "Right now." Sophia's face paled. "Ma'am, please, out!" The maid stepped back slowly, clutching the tray. Lily's eyes filled with tears as she watched the only adult who'd shown her kindness walk away. Richard could feel his heart pounding. This was it. Vanessa was unraveling. That night he sat in his motel room with his recorder, listening to her voice again and again. Every cruel word, every insult, now preserved forever. The next day, he decided, would be the end of it. Saturday morning began like a storm waiting to break. Richard arrived early, hiding near the garden path. Inside, Vanessa was in the kitchen preparing for another ladies' lunch. He heard her on the phone, her tone falsely cheerful. "Yes, come by noon. I'll show you how much the children have improved." Her words made his stomach turn. She was planning to parade them again, to show off their obedience, their fear. By noon, 3 women arrived, their laughter echoing through the marble halls. Richard kept working near the terrace, trimming hedges he didn't need to trim. He had to be close. "Children!" Vanessa called. "Come down now." Lily appeared in a pale blue dress, Ethan in a miniature suit. Both looked exhausted. "Manners," Vanessa warned. "Good afternoon, ladies," Lily said softly. "Good afternoon," the women echoed, smiling awkwardly. "They're adorable," one said. "You've done wonders with them." "Oh, discipline makes all the difference," Vanessa replied with pride. "They used to be wild. Now look at them." "Perfect." Richard's hands shook as he clipped another branch. "Perfect," she'd said. "Perfect little puppets." Moments later, Lily reached for a glass of water. Her tiny hand slipped. The glass shattered across the tile. The room went silent. "Look what you've done!" Vanessa's voice was pure venom. I'm sorry," Lily whispered. "Sorry isn't enough." Vanessa's face flushed red. She raised her hand. Richard took 1 step forward. But before he could move, Sophia appeared from the doorway. "Stop!" she shouted, stepping between them. The slap hit Sophia instead, hard, echoing through the terrace. She stumbled, her cheek already red. Vanessa froze, eyes blazing. "How dare you!" "I won't let you hit her," Sophia said, voice trembling but steady. "She's 6. She's just a child." "You're fired," Vanessa spat. "And I'll make sure you never work again." "Do what you have to," Sophia said. But you won't touch her." The three guests stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene or run. Richard's heart thundered in his chest. It was time. He dropped the shears and stepped forward. "That's enough." Everyone turned. Vanessa's fury twisted into disgust. "And what are you doing here?" "Get back to work." Richard straightened. His voice was calm, deadly calm. "I said, that's enough." Something in his tone made the women glance at each other nervously. Vanessa's confidence faltered. "Who do you think you are?" Richard reached up, peeling the fake beard from his face. The room seemed to stop breathing. First came confusion, then horror. One of the women gasped. "Richard Whitmore?" Vanessa staggered back. "No, that's impossible." He dropped the beard to the floor. Surprise. For a few seconds no one moved. The world seemed to freeze, the air heavy, the silence unbearable. Vanessa stared at Richard as if she were seeing a ghost. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. You were supposed to be in New York." "I was supposed to be a lot of things," Richard said quietly. "A husband, a father, a fool who didn't see the monster living in his own house." Sophia stood motionless, one hand pressed to her reddened cheek. Lily clung to her waist, trembling. Ethan whimpered softly in her arms. "Richard," Vanessa stammered, forcing a laugh that sounded brittle. "This isn't what it looks like." "Oh, I think it's exactly what it looks like," he replied coldly. "I've been here the whole time, Vanessa, watching, listening, recording." The color drained from her face. You recorded me?" "Every word," Richard said, pulling the small recorder from his pocket. "Every insult, every threat, every time you made my children cry." The guests exchanged horrified looks. One of them muttered, "We should go." But Richard's voice stopped them. "No, stay. You were all here to see how perfect my family is, right? Then you'll stay and see the truth." Vanessa's composure shattered. "You tricked me," she screamed. "You spied on me like some criminal." "I trusted you with my children," Richard said. His voice broke slightly before hardening again. "And you broke them." He turned to Lily and Ethan kneeling beside them. "It's over now," he whispered. "No one's going to hurt you again." Lily's small arms wrapped around his neck, sobbing into his shoulder. Ethan's tiny hands clung to his shirt. Sophia looked down, her eyes glistening. "You were their father all this time?" Richard met her gaze. "Yes, I had to know what was happening when I wasn't here." Her lips trembled. "And you saw everything?" "I did," he said softly. "And you were the only light in this house." Vanessa's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Oh, please, don't make her out to be a saint. She's been manipulating you just like everyone else." Richard stood. "The only manipulation here came from you." He played the recording. Vanessa's voice filled the room, cruel and unmistakable. "Fear works better than love. Love makes children spoiled." The women gasped. One backed away, shaking her head. Vanessa lunged for the recorder. "Turn that off!" Richard stepped back. "Touch me again and I'll make sure every lawyer in California hears this." For the first time, she looked truly afraid. "Richard, please," she said, voice cracking. "We can fix this. I can get help, therapy." "No," he interrupted. "You're done. My lawyer's already drawing up the divorce papers. You'll pack your things and leave today. You'll never see these children again." Her face twisted with fury. "You can't take them from me." "They were never yours to take." Sophia flinched as Vanessa lunged again, but Richard caught her wrist mid-swing. His voice dropped to a whisper colder than the marble beneath their feet. "Touch her or my children again, and you'll beg for the mercy you never showed them." Vanessa jerked her arm away, breathing hard. "You'll regret this." "I already regret marrying you," he said. She looked around. The guests, the staff, the house that was no longer hers, then stormed toward the door, her heels striking like gunshots against the floor. The sound faded. Silence fell. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Lily's small voice broke the stillness. "Daddy, is she gone?" "Yes, sweetheart," Richard said softly, pulling her close. She's gone. Sophia crouched beside them, brushing a tear from Lily's cheek. You're safe now, my love. Ethan reached out, tugging at Sophia's sleeve, as if he knew she'd been the one watching over them all along. Richard looked at her, really looked at her, and saw everything he hadn't allowed himself to see before. Strength, compassion, love. You saved them, he said quietly. Sophia shook her head. I just did what anyone should have done. No, he said. You did what I couldn't. For a moment, their eyes locked. Unspoken gratitude, unspoken connection. Then Sophia looked away. You lied to me, she said softly. About who you were. About everything. I know, Richard admitted. And I hate myself for it. But I swear every word I said to you as Robert, about respect, about family, it was real. Tears welled in her eyes. I don't know if I can believe you. You don't have to, he said. Just know this, you'll never have to work for anyone like her again. I'll make sure of it. Sophia smiled faintly, bittersweet. That's not what I wanted, Mr. Whitmore. He hesitated. Then what did you want? To see those children smile again, she said simply. Richard turned to look at Lily and Ethan. Lily had fallen asleep against his chest, her little hand gripping his shirt. Ethan, curled in Sophia's lap, was finally breathing peacefully. For the first time in weeks, the mansion felt quiet. Not the cold, fearful silence Vanessa had created, but a calm that came from safety. Richard exhaled, the weight of everything he'd seen and endured pressing down on him. It's over, he murmured. Sophia nodded. For them, maybe. For you, not yet. He glanced at her, confused. You have to forgive yourself, she said softly. You were trying to protect them. Don't let guilt steal that away. Richard looked down at his children, their faces peaceful at last. You sound like someone who's lost something too. I did, Sophia admitted. But today, I think I found something worth keeping. He smiled faintly. So did I. Outside, the afternoon light poured through the tall windows, painting the marble floor in gold. The scent of roses drifted in from the garden, the same ones Richard had planted years ago, now blooming again. For the first time in a long time, the house didn't feel like a prison. It felt like home.